Hey everyone, I'm Trisha Morris at Club Scrap, and today we're going to be working on the Farm Critters Special Edition. This is going to create 2 note card carriers and 16 A2 size greeting cards. So we have a lot to do. Without further ado, let's get started with our kit. We've got all of the ribbon that came with it and those Velcro dots. We're going to set all of that aside, as well as the envelopes. To help me today, I've got my Fiskars trimmer and, of course, the accordion pocket file organizer, which we will be using today. If you don't happen to have one of these quite yet, no worries. All I would like you to do is just make sure you have some space to keep several piles. So if I say pocket A, you'll put the stuff in pile A. Okay, that's the only way to stay organized enough, I think, to help keep track of all of the pieces and parts we'll be creating by all the trimming we're going to be doing. So to start, just to ensure our success, I always like to put everything in its proper order so that we avoid trimming mistakes. And remember too that you have in your kit some black plain paper and then also a sheet of black folding board. The folding board is going to be substantially heavier than just the regular paper. This is going to actually become the note card carrier itself, this black piece that sort of gives it that nice firm heft to it. So make sure you just know the difference between your paper and your folding board. So speaking of black paper, we're going to just go ahead and find the one sheet of the regular black paper, plain, and then one sheet of the white plain. Next, we're going to trim a blue and then a red. Just keep piling up these papers. Make sure you just grab one each unless I say otherwise. A red and then a white. Another black plain paper. And then 2 green. Now if you got lost already, you can just go back and rewind or not worry about this point and just make sure you're grabbing the proper papers as we call them out. Next, we'll take 2 blue plains that remain and 2 reds and then 2 prints. So we're going to put those prints face down. Then I'm going to have you take that piece of folding board. And finally, the cut apart that has some artwork on it. This will be for decorating our cards. Just looking in on you. Let's take this one and put that face down. And then the one with the strips on it, we'll put that face down. Okay, that's all the paper, should be all the paper in your kit, is now in the exact order in which we'll be trimming it. Okay, so I'm on page 2 of the instructions. This is our first diagram. This is what we want to achieve. You'll notice a few of the diagrams have these arrows on them. And if you're new around here at Club Scrap, you want to make sure that the grain direction of your paper matches the arrow. So if I hold the paper by an edge, I can see that the paper is dipping easily from top to bottom. That's what we want. So if I were to hold the paper by this edge, you can see how stiff it is, and then it droops very easily, and that's the same direction. The droop is the same direction as the arrow. The reason for the importance of this grain direction being properly situated is that this long strip is going to end up wrapping itself around the note card carrier, and we want to make sure that we're cooperating with the grain of the paper when we do that. And so the purpose, all of these grain directions have a reason behind them. Okay, so let's get to some trimming here. We're going to right out of the gates, just a nice easy whole number, 11. So find 11 inches. Make sure you're looking at inches and not centimeters. Stabilize on that clear bar before you slice. And then we'll slide the paper down to 7 3/4. 7 3/4. I like this trimmer because it has a column every 1/4 inch. It's real easy to find 7, 7 1/4, 7 1/2, 7 3/4. And then 4 1/2. Okay, now rotate this paper that's in the trimmer, the 4 1/2 by 12, so it's horizontal. We'll make 3 cuts. 9 3/4, 6 1/2, 3 1/4. Okay, let's take these 3 rectangles that are the same size, and those are going to go in pocket D. Okay, then we're going to take this last rectangle. This is 2 1/4 by 4 1/2. We'll cut horizontally at 2 1/4, and that will create 2 squares. Now this is going to become the little black square on our folio, and I have the letter F on my trimming diagram for those 2 pieces. Now that is the pile for the folio, so I don't even have a pocket F. I'm just gonna put it in my folio pile. Okay, now you should have 2 pieces that are the same size. They're 3 1/4 by 12, and because of the durability of the trimmer, we'll cut them at the same time at 9 and 4 1/2. Okay, so there should be 4 rectangles, all the same size. Those go in pocket D with the others. And then these will go in pocket C. Finally, this long strip is the belly band for our folio, so that's pocket F. We're going to repeat everything we just did. So trim at 11. Oh, check your grain direction. I think I just automatically did that. We'll check at 11, or trim at 11. 7 3/4. 4 1/2. Rotate the 4 1/2 and cut it 9 3/4, 6 1/2, 3 1/4. Gather up the 3 pieces that are the same size, pocket D with the others, and then you have this rectangle. We'll cut at 2 1/4. And that's for the folio. Now grab the 2 that are the same. We'll trim at 9 at the same time, and 4 1/2. Take the 4 rectangles, put them in pocket D, and then you have these almost squares. Those go in C. This is for the folio. Okay, next let's take a blue. Check your grain. This time we want the grain to be dipping easily left to right. So if I hold it here, it's very stiff. This is dippy. And then also take a red. That's nice and droopy this way. Here it's stiff. Dipping left to right. Okay, we're going to cut at 8 1/2. Rotate and cut at 11. And 5 1/2. Okay, we just made 4 card bases, and because of the grain direction planning we did ahead of time, when we fold these cards in half, they will be folding with the grain, and that goes in pocket D. Now you have these little strips. We're going to trim them horizontally at 5 1/2. Pocket B. And then this is a scrap. I'm going to keep them because I ended up using most of my little scraps in my finished cards. Now the remaining 3 1/2 by 12 strip we'll cut horizontally at 9 1/2 and 4 3/4. These are once again panels going into pocket D, and then these little rectangles go in A. We need to repeat this 2 more times with 2 more sheets of paper. So we're going to take a white, check your grain, dipping left to right, and a black. Yes, nice. Okay, so we're making more card bases here. So our first cut's at 8 1/2. This is a great formula, just in general. Then rotate and cut at 11 and 5 1/2. You just made 4 more card bases for pocket D. As I said, D would be very full. And then the small strip will trim horizontally at 5 1/2. These strips in pocket B for the scrap pile. And now take this larger piece. We'll cut horizontally at 9 1/2 and 4 3/4. Most of the trimming we're doing is still making those cards. That goes in pocket D, the smaller rectangle A. Guess what? 2 more. So we'll take the green, check our grain. Take the second green, check the grain. We'll cut at 8 1/2. Rotate 11, 5 1/2. Look. 4 more card bases for pocket D. Yeah, that pocket's getting really full. Then the little strips, if you can remember, we'll trim them horizontally at 5 1/2. Put the strip in B. More scraps. Then this larger piece we'll cut at 9.5 and 4 3/4. You're like, Trisha, this is so much trimming. Well, we are making 16 cards and decorating them. This is pocket A. So every cut does serve a purpose, and it will all make sense very soon. Okay, now we're getting into making some components for our folio. We want to make sure that the next 2 blue pieces go into the trimmer so that the grain is, so that they're dipping easily top to bottom. Not left to right like before, but top to bottom. We'll cut at 11 3/4 and 6 1/4. Now we'll rotate and cut at 10.5. These 2 pieces get set aside in that folio pile, as do these 2 little strips. Now, out of this, we're going to make some more card bases and panels. So we'll cut at 8.5. Look, 2 more card bases. We will place these in pocket D with the others. And then trim this horizontally, this last rectangle, horizontally at 4 3/4. Pocket D. And then this is a scrap. You can just set it aside with your other miscellaneous scraps. There aren't that many. Checking grain, we're going to repeat this again now that we're still on step 3 of our instructions, trimming up our folios. So we will cut at 11 3/4 again. By the way, I did see this now. There's 2 little scraps. We'll set those aside. So 11 3/4 and then 6 1/4. Rotate, cut at 10.5. Pile F. And then these also go into the folio. The remaining piece we'll cut horizontally at 8.5. Here we have 2 more card bases. And this guy gets trimmed horizontally at 4 3/4. Pocket D, if D can even hold anything else. And then 2 little scraps. 2 more really little scraps. Okay, so that was all of step 3. That was 2 blue, 2 red. Now we're on 2 prints. The grain direction does not matter so much on these, but I am going to place them into the trimmer so they're right side up. You can see that the artwork is kind of running at an angle. It's a very forgiving piece of artwork, and I'm going to try to trim both at the same time. The paper does kind of slide around a lot, so it's particularly important that you just stabilize on the clear bar for every cut you make. All right, the first cut is at 11. Then 9 3/4. 8 3/4. Make sure you stabilize. And then 4.5. Okay, now rotate. We'll cut at 11.5. And 5 3/4. All of these are for the folio. And then you've created 2 small scraps. Take the next pieces that are the same size then. This is the 4 1/4 by 12. We're going to cut horizontally at 11 and 5.5. These are also for the folio. And then some scraps. Take the next strips. They should be 1 inch wide. We'll cut at 11.5 and 5 3/4. These are going to grow up to be the covers for the spine, so sometimes it's just kind of nice to know where you're headed. We just trimmed the front and back covers, the spine piece, and then we've also trimmed the pieces. We're working on trimming the pieces for these panels. Those were just done. Another spine, and then the covers for our tab closures here. So this is all folio stuff. So for the F pile. Then your next pair of pieces are a little bit wider. These are 1 1/4 by 12. We'll trim horizontally at 9 1/2. And 4 3/4. These are those tab covers that I showed you earlier. So that goes in the F pile. And then we created a small scrap for the scrap pile. Lastly, 2 more 1 by 12s. We're going to cut horizontally at 11 and 5 1/2. Okay, you just made 4 total. Take 3 of them and put them in pocket A, and 1 of them can go in pocket B. And yes, there are some really tiny little scraps left over. Negligible, if you ask me. Okay, so I'll set those aside for circular filing. Okay, now the fun part. We are going to trim the folding board. Now the folding board has grain also, and it's extremely important that we cooperate with that grain direction. So if you just take the board and you push inward on it, from one direction it will be more cooperative. This, I can barely even push it in at all. Here, there's some give to it. So I want that going into my trimmer so it dips easily top to bottom again. Our first cut is at 11 3/4. So we're just taking off 1/4 inch from the sheet. Again, stabilize firmly. This is extremely heavy, but the trimmer tackles it just fine. Now the next measurement is 5 7/8, and I know a lot of people don't really like it when I use eighths, but it's kind of an important thing for this project. So find 5 3/4. The eighth mark, or the 7/8 is going to be halfway between 5 3/4 and 6. There's that medium-sized line in there. That's 5 7/8. Now rotate the piece that you just created, and we're going to make some unique cuts as well. The first one's at 11 1/2. Not so bad. Then 11 1/8. So that's halfway between 11 and 11 1/4. 11 1/8. Then 10 3/4. We're creating some tiny strips here. And 10 3/8. That's halfway between 10 1/4 and 10 1/2. You'll find 10 3/8. This now has become our actual folio cover. And then we created some strips. There's a wider 1/2 inch strip. That's a scrap. These 3 skinnier strips are going to actually become supports for us on our box. So those strips are kind of hidden in our folio on the spine here to give it some extra strength, because we want it to always look nice. And if this were to get crushed in the purse or something like that, it's still going to look nice. And I also added a support strip to this to just make sure there's some strength here at the top of the folio. I'm not sure if that matters to you so much right now, but for me personally, it's helpful to know why we're doing what we're doing, and that's what's coming ahead. So these are all going to the folio pile, and we have the second folio to make. All right, so we're going to do the same cuts that we just did on the second piece. So that's 11 1/2, then 11 1/8, 10 3/4, and then 10 3/8. Okay, so again, you've got your little stabilizer pieces and your larger 1/2 inch scrap. Here's another folio cover, so that goes in the F pile, and then you've got your scrap as well, your long skinny scrap from the end. Okay, we're almost done with the trimming. Now we're going to prepare the cut aparts for all of our greeting cards. So on page 1 of your instructions, you're going to see a distribution map. That tells you where every single piece is going to go, which card it will be used on. So we'll take this first piece, and I want you to place it in the trimmer so the green, hope it was awesome, is in the upper right corner of the cut apart, and we'll trim at 10. Next, we'll slide down to 7 1/4-ish. And there are these little really pale registration marks on here. Those kind of tell you where to line up the edge of your blade with the paper so that you're cutting at the right measurement. And I'm just like giving you the actual number. Like this is 4 1/4 here. All right, now we're going to rotate and cut these into individual sections. So we'll cut at 9, 6, and 3. Each of these rectangles will decorate card set B. So I've divided the cards into 3 sets. 6 cards for A, 6 cards in B, 4 cards in C, and that way we don't have quite as many pieces to sort through at the end of our session. Okay, now place this next strip into the trimmer with the word celebrate on the right. We'll cut at 10 1/4 and 8 1/2 and 4 1/4. Okay, these 2 pieces plus the sentiments all go in card set B. Now we'll take the next strip. We'll cut at 9, 6, 3. All of these pieces go in pocket C. Now we have one more strip of just sentiments here, and I believe it's the same measurements again. 9, 6, 3. Pocket B. Just one more sheet to go. This time it's important that the narrow strips be on the right. These are going to decorate our belly bands, and we'll cut at 11 1/4. And then 10 1/2. Eight 1/2. 6 1/2. 3 1/4. Rotate. All right, we're going to cut this piece at 11 1/4, 9, 6 3/4, 4 1/2, 2 1/4. So you just created a ton of these little rectangles and a scrap. All of the rectangles go in pocket A. And we're going to repeat those measurements for this next strip. So 11 1/4, rather 11 1/4, 9, 6 3/4, 4 1/2, and 2 1/4. And again, don't worry so much about the measurements, just line up that registration mark. Okay, the horse, the hay there, he goes in A, and the remaining 4 sentiments for the inside of your cards will go in C, plus you have the little scrap. All right, here we have a strip. We'll put the animals in on the far right and trim at 10, 7, 4. Okay, these 3 colorful sentiments go in pocket A, and then this is for the outside cover of the folio, so that goes in pile F. We'll repeat this again, a similar set of measurements here. We got 10 and 7 and 4. Once again, the 3 sentiments go in pocket A, and then this goes in folio pile F. Now you also have the belly bands going in F. Okay, that is all of the trimming required for all of this entire project, the 2 folios and the 16 cards. I'm going to set aside my trimmer and just remove the accordion pocket file and grab my score pal. Okay, you have all of these card bases in pocket D. If you want, we can score them, and you would just place each one into the score pal at horizontally and score at 4 1/4. So here we go, 4 1/4. Now, a time-saving technique for scoring can also be that you score 2 pieces at a time. I'm going to show you a couple of different time-saving techniques. That's an option if you really feel comfortable with your score pal. Another option is not scoring at all. So you have these 16 cards to make. Because we have trimmed the paper in the correct direction to fold with the grain, you can just simply use the score pal as a jig. So place your card base into the score pal vertically, fold up to the edge there, and then make a crease just with your fingertip. And that way you can skip the score line, because again, we trim this paper so we would fold with the grain. If you've ever folded paper against the grain, you know what it feels like. The fold is very crumpled and unattractive, but when you're folding with the grain, it folds relatively easily. So you can just skip that whole scoring process and just enjoy the fact that you can fold with the grain. And look how quickly these 16 card bases will be made. Also, for the pieces that you do score, make sure that the bump of the score is always on the inside of the fold. Do not let that bump be on the outside. It's always prettier on the inside, and that's even the way Hallmark does it. Bury the bump. That's a good way to remember, to bury the bump of the score. So if you're making a couple hundred Christmas cards and they all get folded in half, you just saved yourself a ton of time and some sore fingers. Now, notice I just finger creased these cards. Now I'm going to sort them sort of by color. And in batches, I can take my bone folder and just do a whole batch at a time to burnish those creases, and now they're all really well burnished. So again, I'll just sort by color. Make sure all of my creases are on the same side. And now in some of the darker papers, especially if you're not using a bone folder, it can mar the paper. So one other tip would be to just cover whatever you're burnishing with your instruction sheet. And that will avoid scarring the paper with your bone folder. Again, especially if you're not using, if you're using a plastic one, which I see a lot more and more people are using plastic bone folders. Okay, so I'm going to set aside these card bases for now. We have some more scoring to do. And let's begin with the papers that are the red and green folio pieces that we trimmed earlier. These are 6 1/4 by 10 1/2 in size, and they grow up to become the actual pockets that you see here in blue, and on the other one are red. Okay, so we'll put one of these in the score pal so it's vertical, and we'll score it 5 3/4. Then I need to rotate this paper. And it doesn't matter if it's this way or this way, it's the same. Just make sure you're not flipping the paper. Just rotate and score at 1/2. So yes, that's kind of uncomfortable. 5, 5 1/2, and 10. So we kind of have a W shape to our score lines. Don't forget this guy. Now we're going to repeat that 3 more times. So 5 3/4 on the vertical. Rotate 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, and 10. And then do that 2 more times. 5 3/4, rotate 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, and 10. One more time. 5 3/4. 1/2, 5, 5 1/2, and 10. Now I want you to find the red and the blue pieces that are 1 1/2 by 6 1/4 that we trimmed earlier. We'll score these horizontally at 5 and 5 1/2. 5, 5 1/2. I'll do these at the same time. 5, 5 1/2. Okay, nice. Now we need to score the folding board, and since it's so heavy, it was very important that we were going to prepare these pieces so that they eventually fold with the grain. I have a trick for you. It needs to be scored at 4 5/8. Okay, so that's halfway between 4 1/2 and 4 3/4. If you use a ruler to help you keep on track, that's always a good idea. So I just kind of put the ruler so that it's at 4 1/2-ish. And that way it will help guide my scoring tool right into the channel for 4 5/8. And you'll want to make several passes while you press firmly. And when I've taught this in classes, live classes, a lot of times those, you know, it's just scoring all over the place. If you do a miss score, just look at this. Almost all the folding board is completely covered. You see very little of it. So if you have a misstep and you have a stray score line, don't worry about it. It'll just be covered completely. But here is a nice looking score line at 4 5/8. Then I'm going to move to 5 3/4. So again, I'm just using my ruler to allow my to act as a guide for my scoring tool. Again, 3 or 4 passes, and I'm looking pretty good here. We need to repeat that for the second folio. You'll be hearing me say that a lot. So again, that first number was 4 5/8. Five 3/4. Nice. Very good. The next thing I'm going to grab here is a craft knife, a cutting mat, a pencil, a ruler, and some scissors. And I'm going to make some really important cuts on those 4 pieces of scored folio paper that we prepared earlier. When we work with these, I want you to work with the bumps of the score lines facing up, just so that we're all on the same page. Speaking of page, on page 3 of our instructions, you can see an illustration of where we're headed with these 4 pieces of paper. We need 1 red and 1 blue looking like this, and 1 red and 1 blue looking like this. So first we're going to make the one on the top, which creates 1 folio pocket at a certain angle. You can see that it will make this angle eventually, and then the other 2 pieces will make the other angle. So it's important we don't make 4 pieces that look the same, or both of our pockets will be angling in the same exact direction. I hope that made sense. Okay, so what we need to do first is, I'm just going to take one of these folio pieces and just put it on my cutting mat so it's lined up on an inch mark here. And then I need to add a slit, a cut from the edge of the paper to the score line 4 inches down from the top edge. And if I can just even use my inch markings on this cutting mat, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 inches. And if I just lay my ruler across that, I'll make a slice then from the edge of the paper to the score, to the first score line I see, on each side. Okay, now I'm going to remove the entire score line itself and this little section, which is what matches with the sketch that I'm looking at. And again, I can use the grid on my ruler and the grid on the cutting mat as well to just help me with placing everything, making sure it's straight. So now I remove that one little section, and to review on my instructions, that's this piece right here. Now I need to remove a section from that little initial score line or cut that we made to an area 1 inch from this left score line of the spine. So between here and here is an inch. I wonder if my cutting mat would help me do that. So if from here to here on the measurements of my cutting mat is an inch, so I could measure that as well, just so that, you know, if you feel more comfortable, you know, using the ruler and saying, all right, this is 1 inch. I'm going to mark that. Boom. Like that's where we're headed. That's fine too. But I just know that this is an inch from this line. And there I put a pencil mark there. Oops. No big deal. And then I'll angle toward that other cut line I made earlier and remove this section. I'll erase this. I always try to keep good erasers on my pencils. Okay, now I need to remove some things down here. So again, if you look at our picture, we're just going to take out the score lines and then we're removing the entire corner of that left side. So keeping my angle here, I'm going to just cut away the score line itself. That's it. Nothing more than the score line itself. Same on these 2 score lines. I'm stopping when I reach the intersecting horizontal line This is all just kind of important to make a beautiful folio. Now, on the side with the angle, I'm going to take out this score line and the other one to remove the entire corner. Boom. That is my first folio in blue. I need to repeat all of those steps in red. So I'm just, again, going to work with my grid everywhere and position this so it's level with the top. Here's a line on my cutting mat. And 1, 2, 3, 4 inches down, I'll line up my ruler. I'm not sure if you use the grid on your cutting mat or the grid ruler very much, but I'm finding I use it more and more, and it really, really helps me. So first I make those 2 cuts that go to the first vertical score line. Now we're going to take out this corner just like we did before, removing the score line itself up until we reach that 4-inch mark. Okay, boom, gone. Now I need to cut from this score line up to the 1 inch. So here, this right here, from here to here is 1 inch. So I bring my ruler there and hold it and then pivot my ruler until I'm lined up with this score line where I made that cut earlier. Push firmly and hold your craft knife like you would a pen. And we take out this triangular shape. And lastly, with scissors, I'll remove the score line here. The 2 that are in the middle at the spine of our little folio pocket, just like tiny little darts. And then we remove the entire corner and score lines on this angled edge. Good, now we have 2 of these that match. Done. If you look back at your sketch, we're now going to do the opposite, a mirror of all of that. So I'll walk you through the first one for sure here. We're going to basically just reflect what we just did. So initially that first cut 4 inches down from the top is going to be the same. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 inches down. I'm using my grid to make that first cut again, same thing. Right there. And right there. You could do that with scissors as well. Now I'm going to remove this section. Normally I like to cover what I keep with my ruler, but in this case I'm just to maintain our perspective. I'm not doing that. All right, we're taking out this section from the left side of our folio. Now I gotta find 1 inch from this right center score line. That's here. I'll put my ruler on that spot, hold it, and pivot till I line up with this cut on my score line here. And cut at that angle. Make sure you cut through. Very good. Now, scissors again. This time, we can go from left to right if you want, and we'll repeat the action. So a dart to remove the score up to that little pencil line. And then we're going to take out the corner. Boom. Beautiful. Okay, we'll repeat that with the red, and I'll just kind of speed through this on camera to save a little bit of film time. Fabulous. Now I have the 2 sets with the one with the angle on the left, one with the angle on the right. Remember, the bumps of my scores are all facing up, and mission accomplished. Yay! I'm going to clean up my work area a little bit. Now the next step is very simple. Remember how I talked about these little 3/8 inch pieces that we prepared ahead of time? This is going to support the spine of each of these folio pieces. Now, when we trimmed this, it was the height of our folio itself. So if I were to cover the spine of this little folio piece, this black piece is just a little too long. So I'm going to cut off about 1/4 of an inch, and that's perfect. I'll do that for the remaining pieces. It's all about 1/4 of an inch. It's not a big deal. Just take scissors and do it. And if you don't get it cut, if it's still too long, no problem. And if it's too short, it'll be just fine. Then I'm going to take some of Club Scrap's bookbinding glue, which I've put into a needle-tipped applicator. And I'll just plop that right in its little spot here on all 4 of these pieces that we've prepared. Now you have a series of green printed panels. There are 4 larger and 4 smaller. The smaller panels are the ones we need right now, and we're going to be using the panels to cover the angled portion of our folio. So if you want, you can choose like one of each, because we trimmed these prints at the same time. So I'm going to take 2 for the red and 2 for the blue. Okay, so let's just work with blue folios for now, and I have a unique way to do this. So we've been working with the bumps of the scores facing up, and now we have this on the wrong side of the folio. That'll really help us keep things straight. I'm going to flip the folio over so that the indentations of the scores are facing up, and I'm going to temporarily position this mat onto the angled side of the folio. Just don't adhere it, just temporarily put it on there so that it's centered within the scored area. You have nice margins on all sides within that scored shape. Okay, now while holding it in place, flip it back over, and I'm going to make a mark on the back of that print, indicating where the angled line is. Now we want to eliminate this, but plus I also want to eliminate just a little bit more of that so there's a nice frame all the way around that piece. And that's where this grid ruler comes in. So what I want to do is remove this area plus 1/8 of an inch south of this line right here, okay? Now on my ruler, the first line on the grid is 1/8 of an inch. It's a line made of dashes. So 1 extra cube worth of paper needs to be removed. Okay, so that's my cutting line. Now I can do that just by covering that line, going right up to that line with my ruler and trim that away. So again, it's the area we marked plus 1/8 of an inch. And let me show you what happened. This should fit then perfectly into this space. In fact, I'm just going to grab my adhesive. If you want to use your bookbinding glue, you can, but the 2-way adhesive works just fine for this. Remember, I'm placing this on the right side of the folio, the side with the indentations of the score lines. Let me show you another quick way to do this. Once again, place the other blue folio with our panel that we've planned, center it into the area, hold it there while you flip it over, and just mark your line. Now we need to get rid of all of this plus 1/8 of an inch. So if I just take my ruler, I don't even have to draw a line if I don't want to. I've placed the first dashed line of my ruler onto the line that I drew. And now I have a nice angle that will allow me to nest this beautifully right onto my folio. Okay, now the exciting part, we get to actually assemble our folios now. And I think the best way to do that is to just go ahead and bury all of the bumps of the score lines on your folio. So every single one of them, including this bottom section. It doesn't need to be a real severe burnishing session or anything with your bone folder. Just kind of get the original, crease made on all of those score lines. Then, really super easy thing to do. What I want you to do is position one of your folios so the angle is on one side, and then take the other piece and fold it over, okay? Then apply adhesive just to the flap area that is not that little tab. So here's a little tab down here. Keep that free of adhesive for now. Just put your adhesive on this tab with it folded over, facing up. Then take the other tab and press it down on top of your adhesive. So this is completely flat now, and the seam of your folio will be at the back of the pocket, not on the front. Does that make sense? I think that just gives it such a nice finished look. We can do the same thing when we finish up the bottom as well. So what you'll do is tuck in the back flap, so the non-printed or non-decorated side, tuck that in first, okay? Then bring in your little tiny tabs, and then bring the front flap back. Again, what that does is traps those little tabs inside the folio where they can't get in the way of your inserts. And by bringing in that front flap last, you have a nice finished look on the front of your pocket. Now, these skills can be used to make a pocket of any size, right down to the width, the depth, the length. Everything about it can be repeated to reflect whatever project it is you would like to make now that you have this skill, and now that you just have that knowledge about how to assemble this little cute folio pocket. You repeat the same thing in the mirror. So again, it's important that you make those creases ahead of time. I've assembled these folios without the creases being made for the base, and I just had a really difficult time. So in this case, look for the piece that still has the tab. Apply the adhesive to the flap only, not the tab. Then bring the other tab to that to adhere while it's flat. So much easier than just expand into a little rectangle. Bring in the back flap first, then the side tabs, and then the front flap last. You'll repeat that for the blue folios as well in the exact same manner. When you're finished with that step, you will have all 4 of your folios, one left and one right, for each note card carrier. And just at this point, a word of reminder, I have made a lot of these, and each time I make them, I get better and better. So if it's not exactly flawlessly perfect, please just be patient with yourself and know that if you do this project again, it will just keep looking better and better. Your skills will increase. Now what we need to do is prepare our tabs for the folios. And this was an addition to this project that I came up with, I don't know, a few years ago. I used to make these without this flap, but every single time the cards would fall out the top, and that's why I've come up with these little tabs, and they really do a nice job of not only adding stability to the project, but I think they also look nice too. Gives it a professional feel. So let's just set these aside just for the time being while we prepare these tabs. Now I'm going to place them on my work surface with the bump of the score facing up. And we should still have a couple of these little pieces of folding board handy. Now this time we just need to cut them. I don't know, how big is this? This is 1.5 inches. So that's about the size of the stability piece we need just to kind of add that strength. So I'm using 1 as a template and just trim the rest. You should have enough pieces to go around. Okay, then just do the same thing we did before. You can add your bookbinding glue to the little piece. Again, make sure you're gluing this to the side with the bumps facing up. And then repeat that for all 4 pieces. Next, something that we can do to add kind of a neat look is if you happen to have a corner chomper or a corner rounding punch. I sort of like the 1/4 inch size versus the 1/2 inch just because these are pretty small, and you can round the bottom corners of your tabs. So again, that's the corner that's furthest from the little stabilizing piece that we glued into place. So this is on the opposite end, and I'm using the 1/4 inch setting. Now we also have mats for these, so you have to dig into your printed prepped pieces, and you should be able to find some shorties, like with relative to the height of all the other pieces. So these are going to decorate our flaps. Make sure that everything's facing the right way, how you want it. And I'm going to also round the corners of these strips as well. Of course, that step is completely optional, especially if you don't happen to have a corner chomper. Don't worry about that. And next, I will just apply some adhesive to the back of these pieces and center them onto the tabs. Now, it's really important to install these now versus after the pockets are already in the spine. The reason for that is we get to hide this tab behind the pocket itself. Now you have a decision to make at this point. Do you want the red tabs with the red, or do you want the blue tabs on the red, just to add a little bit of variety in color? I chose to do it this way in my first one, so I'll do it monochromatic in this one to make it all red. And so we'll need to adhere these, and it's good if we're adhering them consistently. So I'm going to put the edge of my tab a 1/2 inch, and that's just one box on my cutting mat here, a 1/2 inch in from the edge on all of these. So I'll mark them all while I have my pencil in my hand. And again, this is the side that has the full back to it. Okay, so I was going to do the same color here. So what I'm going to do is apply adhesive to the tab, make sure you don't get any on the area that has the black stabilizer on it, and adhere that, just like hook it right onto the back. Just give it a second to, adhere. And that's a really nice spot for that. I'll repeat for the remaining 3 pockets. Earlier we set aside these pairs of Velcro, or I should say hook and loop tape dots. These are self-adhesive dots. One side has the hook, the other side has the loop, and it doesn't really matter what side goes on what, but I like it to be consistent. So I'm going to peel away, this is the hook side of the dot. I'll peel that away and place it on the back center of a tab. Then I'll peel away the other half, leaving that attached, and make sure I have a nice shape to my piece, and then just secure that onto the pocket nicely. And then I'll do the same on this one. So again, I'm going to remove the tape, and again, it doesn't matter which, as long as I like to do the same. So I remove from the hook side. I'll place that on the center here, then remove this side of that backing and close it, making sure I have a nice shape to that top wall here so that it's positioned in the right spot. And repeat that for the red set as well. Beautiful. All that attached, we're really getting close to being done. All that's left now is to prepare these covers. Now here's an interesting thing, and I've been jamming this rule home for a long time, that about burying the bump. The bump of the square goes on the inside of the fold. You know the rule, I before E except after C? Bury the bump unless it's folding board is my mantra here. So here I have my score. Here's the bump, and I'm going to keep the bump on the outside of my note card carrier. Okay, I just found that it just holds the layers of all of this paper together nicely and gives me a pretty nice crease. Now I notice I didn't completely flatten these folds. By the way, folding board is developed for the packaging industry for high-end things like perfume boxes, cosmetics, that sort of a thing. I mean, this is really a top-of-the-line sort of a deal. So basically now I know which is the outside. It's the side of the folding board that has the bump on it. It's just opposite of what it normally would be. Then you should have some panels that will fit right on top of the scored area of your cover, as well as the spine. And look at that. So lovely. Okay, so now I'm just going to use my favorite adhesive. Again, you can use bookbinding glue if you want. I'll grab the full perimeter of each of these panels and just add it centered right within the area. There's going to be a 1/16 of an inch reveal on all 4 sides within the scored areas. Okay, then flip the boards over. You should have 2 more spine covers cut and ready to go. And that's the nice part about doing all that trimming ahead of time. 2 things were accomplished. We had minimal waste of our resources, and then we could literally put the trimmer away, do all of our scoring, put the scoring away, do all of our assembly. So once that really, the big thinking part is behind us, we can have a lot of fun doing just this fun assembly part. Okay, now we can choose our folio pockets for everything. Look at that. So lovely. Couple of options for installation here. I like to use our bookbinding glue simply because it gives me a little bit of flexibility in repositioning once it's landed on the book board, or on the folding board rather. So I just add a nice line of glue around the perimeter of the pocket, and then I can place it, and looking for that same kind of reveal, just a little bit on each part of that scored area. And then you can open the Velcro tab, turn this a little bit, and use your ruler to burnish the surface of the back of the pocket onto the folio. Just watch for excess glue. You don't want to have too much glue involved in the process here. I'm going to do the same on the other side, and then the same on the other 2 pieces on the other cover. A quick word as I'm installing this, I should think to remind you that you want to make sure your pockets are angling in the right direction. So they should be angling down toward the middle, so that when this is closed, it looks like the spine of a book. I do recall on one of the generations of these that I've made, I wasn't paying close attention and I glued them in on the opposite sides. It was very frustrating, and I don't want that to happen to you. However, if it does, you won't be the first. Just remember, you know, it's, again, your very first time doing this, and or if it is, your future generations of this project will simply improve over time, as will your crafting knowledge and ability. If you want, you can grab 4 envelopes and add them to the pockets just so that they're there for safekeeping. And it's so nice how those tabs hold everything in place. Next, you should have in your folio pile, you should have a long black and white strip that coincides with your printed strips. So I'm going to apply some adhesive to this strip. You could do it with bookbinding glue as well. And nest it. The black obviously has a lot more contrast, but we will just work with this white as well. It's just how it worked out with our paper usage. But by doubling this up, it gives it a little bit more strength. Okay, now what we'll do is place the edge of the belly band wrap onto the center of our folio and guide it so that it makes a turn at the spine. Comes back up and around and makes the final crease to land back at the front. Now you want to make sure your band is going to be snug enough that it stays on, but loose enough that you can slide it. So just be careful not to over tighten this, or you're going to trap everything in there permanently. What I like to do then is just try to make sure that your pieces are going to line up nice. And then I will add a little bit of glue to the top and then to the back of this one, so that it just kind of is going to adhere very nicely. Just give that a second to cure, Now we actually ended up with we have a black and a white piece. Now what you could do if you really wanted to is just take 1/8 of an inch off the black. I'll show you what I mean by that. I'll be right back. I turned this into a 2 1/8 inch square. And that way I could use both the white and the black piece that I'd had. Doing the 2 1/8 inch was just, seemed like I would be pushing it a little bit during the trimming process. Now I have a clever way for you to install this. So what you'll do is you can nest this if you want onto the black and bring this behind the belly band and center it on the band or on your project overall from top to bottom as well. And then you can add a little more adhesive to the back of this and sandwich it on top of the band. And that way the seam of the band is completely disguised and now your folio is looking quite fabulous if you ask me. We'll repeat that whole process for the second band and folio. Oh my goodness, I'm so happy with how these turned out. Now we're just gonna take a little break, regroup our area, and I'm gonna come back and show you how to put these cards together. We have just this tiny little pile of scraps that remain from the making of this entire project, and we just started out with 12 by 12 papers. I think that's pretty awesome. And in fact, when I was done making the prototypes of my cards, I didn't even have this as scrap anymore. I incorporated all of this into the inside of my greeting cards. Now you have this, perhaps you have an accordion pocket file with everything organized in it, card set A, B, and C, and then you have tons and tons of panels in this back pocket. So, or maybe you worked with piles. What I want to point out to you is that all of these panels in pocket D, plus the card bases that we folded, are all nestable. Okay, so you have a card base, then you have a larger panel, and then you have a smaller panel. Black and white are the smaller panels. In some cases, when the card had a black base, instead of putting the white panel on top of the colored panel on the outside, I moved the white panel to the inside of the card so you could still write a sentiment with a black pen. I hope that makes sense. So basically all of these cards and panels are interchanged between the 3 sets of cards, A, B, and C. So if I take everything out of the A pocket, that's going to be all of the rest of the cards and sentiments, both in, the images for the outside and the inside as well, for all of your greeting cards. So what I want you to do then is to turn to page 5 of your instructions. And here you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards, and then all of the art that's both on the outside and the inside of the card. So there's really basic assembly here. So if I can tell, I've got a red card, a green, and then another green, another red, another blue, and another red. So those are the bases for all 6 cards in this set. Then I need my colored panel, okay? So this came from that same pocket D. All right, it looks like you use a black, blue, another blue. Just looking at the pictures, look at the pretty pictures. Black, green, and white. These are the larger panels. Then let's grab our next largest. This is also was in pocket D. So we're going to alternate. Now we've got a white, black, black, white, white, black. And those should all nest perfectly. And that's the fun part. Oh, this is not correct. This should have been green. So I'll go back and grab the larger green. My bad. Sorry about that. Okay, hopefully that didn't cause too much confusion. You're like, Trish, no, that is not correct. Okay, now from the things we pulled out of pocket A, I can tell that these 2 cards have a print on them. Oh, and then this one, the printed part goes on the inside of the card. So there we go. We got a home for all of that too. Then let's take our colored panels, shall we? So here we have green, red, white, blue, black, green. Now sentiments. Let's look for our chicken. Just chicken up on you. Oh, did I misfile those? I may have. No? Nope, here he is. Just chicken up on you. Hey there. You're the greatest of all time. Thinking of you. Happy birthday. Let's have a doggone good time. Lastly, we have some innies. Hope things are excellent. How's it going? Yep, that's you, the greatest of all time. Sending hugs your way, party on and celebrate. Plus, you can even tell from looking at the picture of the inside of the card which scraps from the pile I incorporated into the mix as well. So, of course, that's all optional, but it's a great way to even use your little scraps. Let's take a look at the cards from the finished set. Here's the Just Chicken Up on You. Added some of the jute that, of course, was included. And look how beautiful all those panels completely nest together. Hope things are excellent. Then we've got the How's It Going? Let's find that guy. Hey there. More jute just wrapped around the nested panels with a little bit of a blue scrap there peeking out, and just kind of take scissors and cut a notch into that. You're the greatest of all time. I did some blue and gingham ribbon both. Added a bow. And look, even just this little skinny strip. Look at what that adds to the inside of the card. I absolutely love that. Let's see. Thinking of you with the strip added. A little gingham bow. Sending hugs your way on the inside. Happy birthday, party animal. Party on, party animals. And then let's have a doggone good time with celebrate in the middle. These all come together so easily. You're going to love how simple this is. If you're a stamper, you don't have to use these pre-cut sentiments. You're welcome to incorporate images of your own. What's a neat little detail about these images is I commissioned my friend Terry Einer. She's a local Wisconsin artist that had the joy of recently retiring from her regular office occupation to being a full-time artist, and she's really known for her whimsical farm animals. So we worked with Terry to create the art for this collection, and my on-staff designer Jacqueline did a beautiful job of finishing the artwork and creating all of the sentiments to match. So I've put all those cards away. They're ready to assemble. I'm going to turn to the next page of my instructions. And here I am on page 6. Let's sort out the bases of our cards again. So we will begin with white and blue and black for horizontal cards. Then verticals. We've got a green, a red, and a blue on the vertical. Maybe I'll do them this way so you can maybe have a better view of everything. Good. Now we've reached for our panels. Remember, we have larger panels and smaller panels, and all of these were in pocket D, all prepared for us. So we'll nest with red. Sorry, blue card is next with the green panel and then a red panel. On our vertical, we'll go blue, white. Make sure you grab the larger one, and the green. Does this have to be how you do the panels? No. You can do them however you want. But now in this case, on this blue card, it has a white panel, but it's on the inside. So I'm just going to go ahead and slide that right in there. And then the smaller panel on the black card as well. The white will be on the inside. Here we have a black panel, another black panel, and then this blue card, a white panel on the inside. Next, I'm going to grab everything out of pocket B. This is set B. Looks like we can distribute this lime green piece and then a black strip, lime green, white, blue, and red. You see how that distributes all the color? Plus, I think I used this on the inside of this How's It Going card, this first white card. So the print that we've set aside will be in there. Okay, next we can do our main greetings. We've got Just Looking In on You. Heard, let's see, it's past your birthday, and heard it's your birthday. These are so fun. Muchas gracias. And hey girl, and what's up chicken butt? Okay, then for the inside, how's it going? Hope it was awesome, and celebrate. You're the best. Thanks so much. Just looking in on you and thinking about you. Wow. Plus all the insides have so much fun going on. I can tell I use one of these other scraps on this one here and all kinds of fun things to look at. I'm going to show you the finished set so you get the idea. Let's see, we can get these in order again. Just looking in on you, I wrapped the upper corner of the card with ribbon. It's a great way to use ribbon without adding bulk for cards that you want to mail. You're the best. Let's see, no, let's go to, it's past your birthday. Just the gingham ribbon adds so much. I think it's perfect. Plus, look at just this little strip of scrap red adds so much of the inside of the card. Heard it was your birthday. Fun combination of things inside there. Muchas gracias. Here I did a fun double looped bow where I have one half of a loop here and then I threaded through the other part of the loop so there's no knot. And again, that makes it more flat for mailing. Hey girl, hey. Stapled some of the ribbon here. And then what's up? I added the jute. I love that red jute, is so pretty. Again, a little strip to anchor things down in that spot. Fabulous. Finally, we'll turn to the last page of our instructions and distribute our final card bases. We've got blue, black, white, green. From our panels that we prepared, we have green, red, red, blue. Right, then we have a white here and a black there. Then take everything out of pocket C, add a black square, a white square, a black square, and a white square. Okay, here we have You've Got Mail, You're a Good Egg, Happy Birthday, and then we got the whole family there. And then our insides here. How's it going? Thank you kindly. Get up there and move it. And then from the whole herd. Done. So once that is all adhered, plus you can decorate the in and outside however you wish. Just a simple gingham bow here with more of my scraps used on the inside. You're a good egg. Just a very simple addition of the jute ribbon and the gingham wrapped around the larger panel with incorporating the blue color on the inside. It's nice on this one. There is enough space in here, so I wasn't too worried about not having a white panel. If you want to make a liner for that card, of course, you could do that. There's that double looped bow again. It's just a loop taped to the back and another loop. It's so great. How's it going? And then from the whole herd, here you go. Really fun. Absolutely love how these turned out. That was a lot of work and a lot of time invested, but I think this is a worthwhile project. They're beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. Anybody would love these. So once your cards are completed, you'll have the joy of choosing which ones will go into the folios, which one maybe you want to keep for yourself. Maybe you only want to put like just a few of the cards in the folio. It's totally up to you. It's your own project. Ultimately, I hope you love it. And what's cool about this is you can recycle this pretty incredible document of instructions. I poured hours and hours and hours of my time into this project. So if you liked this, you absolutely could substitute paper from your stash. Plus, you can grab some more folding board from the Club Scrap store. We have it in several different colors. It comes in, we have limited volume of like a stainless steel, hammered copper. We have black, and we also have this beautiful craft color. So you can get more folding board to create these nice sturdy gifts in plenty of time for the holidays. And but you're gonna have so much fun working with this Farm Critters collection and turning all of this stuff into something really amazing. You can be incredibly proud of yourself for making it this far. Thank you so much for joining me here today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.